What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute since I made a Jeep Wrangler video. I pretty much only make these things when this thing's broken, and we are definitely broken right now. The coolant is disappearing, and we have a check engine light for a misfire on cylinder 6. I'm hoping that these are related, and hopefully they're related to just a simple fix, which is going to be a lower intake manifold gasket replacement. I have a coolant pressure tester kit out here set up already. I'm going to show you a little bit of diag I did with it. I mean, it's just a very little bit, but this is a great tool for figuring coolant leaks out. What's happening in the mornings when this thing's cold and I start it up, it misfires for, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, and then it clears up, and the Jeep runs totally fine. So that's why we're getting the code, because it's misfiring in the morning, cold start. But when you start it up also, you can hear the coolant in the heater core move around, slosh around. So there's definitely air in the system. So what I think might be happening here is, with this case, I think the lower intake manifold gasket is actually leaking coolant into cylinder 6. And the way the gasket works on this particular motor, which is the 3.8, it does block coolant from getting in the intake manifolds or the intake galleys. And when it goes bad, it will leak coolant into the intake. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening here. I've already compression tested cylinder 6, and I've done all the rest of the cylinders too. Everything was good. And I also leak down tested to make sure I didn't have like a blown head gasket or something. And it was good too on cylinder 6. My spark plugs are new. The spark plug wires are pretty new. The ignition coil, it's actually been changed 3 times on this thing. And I can do a coolant pressure test, trying to see if I can see a visual on if the coolant's like dripping out somewhere, and it's not. The water pump is new. I'm pretty sure it's leaking into cylinder 6, overnight, and then when we're on the highway and we're driving, the car might actually be sucking it up into cylinder 6. These coolant pressure testers, they're real handy tools for things like this, because they'll lead you in the right direction, and they'll kind of verify that you have a leaking issue and a leaking problem. They're not very expensive. Like this one came off of Amazon. This was like a $30 kit, and it actually works really well. So I'm going to pump this thing up to about 13 psi and let it sit here for a minute, and if it comes down, we definitely have a leak. Pressure's actually supposed to hold for quite a while. You don't want to go over 15 psi, but we'll check it here in a second. We'll go, actually, you know what we'll do? We will go and look at the intake manifold gasket. This is the intake manifold gasket I'm going to go with. It's the Felpro, and this is the metal gasket. But if this is the intake port on cylinder 6, this is actually a coolant passage, I'm pretty sure, if I can remember right. But if there's any type of leak going on, or if the leak actually leaks down in here, it will suck it up right away. And it uses some silicone, from what I can remember, in certain spots that can go bad. We'll see it when we get in there. And the kit does come with upper intake manifold gaskets also. Hopefully it solves my issue with the check engine light and the coolant disappearing and the heater working funky. So we'll start ripping apart. Okay, so I'll probably end up just time-lapsing through a lot of it, unless I run into something that's kind of difficult, which there really isn't too much difficult with the Jeeps, but we'll start with just taking off the top, everything that we can see. Intake tube, hose, plastic intake. Need to get everything out of the way, okay? This might get kind of tricky because these are actually pretty old and pretty hard, but won't be too bad. Get this out of the way. So you will need the fuel line disconnect tools. They're really cheap on Amazon. Just for this one fuel line here, just have to get this one out of your way. Sometimes these things can be a pain in the ass to unclip. Boom.
So the EGR pipe is kind of in the way, and there's a little bracket back here in the back with one of these studs. And once you get that out of the way, you can actually pull it out and move it up out of the way like that. Now the rest of these guys for the intake are just 10s. I'm going to end up doing those. There's a bracket for the alternator here. It's 13. Just unplug the sensor here. It should come right off. The upper intake is pretty easy to get off. It's nothing really difficult. Just snake this bastard off. You can take the throttle body off or anything. There is a vacuum line in the very back, but it's just this EGR pipe. It's just kind of the only thing holding it up. There you go. Got to remove the coil bracket. It is bolted to the intake. Now you don't need to disconnect all those spark plug wires. I'm going to go unbolt the coil pack from the bracket itself. Just some 10 millimeters. If I hang loose there. These are the 13 mils we're going to have to undo right here too. Okay, from the intake, from the top of the intake, we need to get rid of some of the wiring. Okay, so there's a coolant temperature sensor here. We're gonna have to undo, and we're gonna unplug each injector, get the wiring harness, and get it out of the way. The bolts for the lower intake, if you look, they're right here. Okay, there's a 10 here and a 13 here. They kind of go back and forth through the intake. We're just gonna undo those. Then we'll be able to pull this thing right off. All right, a little bit of wiggling, and it should just come right out. Ooh. No. Come on. All right. Ooh, look how gross that is. All right, so if you look down in here, it goes towards the back. So this is cylinder 6 intake. And you can see the back ones here, these are water channels. And if the gasket goes bad, it'll start sucking in. Hopefully that's what's going on here. Get towards the front, it's actually pretty dry, but towards the back, you can see that it's starting to get pretty wet. So right here in the corners, the gasket is siliconed in, and when it fails, you can start to have oil leaks, and this is where the coolant might start to leak also. I do have a pretty big oil leak that is coming from the top that, from what I could tell, wasn't the valve covers, and it might have been this back one right here. So we'll get this all cleaned up and throw the intake gasket on and wrap this puppy up. All right, use a little bit of Honda Bond.
seems to be running good. Got the bleeder bottle on there. These things are really handy to bleed the cooling systems. All right, guys. Well, it's been a couple days since I did the lower intake manifold gasket, and it's been about 3 days, and the check engine light has not come back on. So the car has not been misfiring in the mornings, which is great. No more cylinder 6 misfire as of today. The heater has been working fine, no weird sounds either, so that's good also. And just to verify that like we've repaired it, or I've repaired it with the gasket, got the cooling pressure tester back up. I pumped it up to 13 PSI, and it's been holding for at least the last 10 minutes. So it hasn't moved at all, which is excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up. I'll have some links down below for some of the tools that I used, a little bit of information down there, so check that out. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can hit me up down in the comment box below, down there. And yeah, if you like the content, do me a favor and subscribe. There will be more. And yeah, you guys take care, be safe, and have a great weekend. Yeah, and again, if you have any questions, you can just hit me up. You can find me on Instagram. It's a real quick way of getting hold of me if you have any type of question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Later, guys.